This important public service video is being brought to you in front of the CDC, Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, I'm Dean Berman. Welcome to my video on ACE Matters. This title is a double entendre in that I'll be talking about matters related to ACE, ACE, or Adverse Childhood Experiences, and also the topic of ACE is a really important one. I'm a psychologist who's worked with children, adolescents, and families for all of my career. In that capacity, I've learned a lot about ACEs. That is, these adverse childhood experiences that have been a part of the lives of many of the children and adolescents I've seen. So let's take a look at ACEs and their impact on later life. In the mid-1990s, the CDC and Kaiser Permanente health centers conducted a study in San Diego with over 17,000 adults where they asked them 10 questions about childhood, maltreatment, and family situations, and also questions about their current health status and behaviors. There were 10 questions. Each one answered yes or no, scored 1 or 0, with a possible range in ACE scores from 0 to 10. These ACEs were common. 2/3 of this group had an ACE score of at least 1, and 12% had a score of 4 or more. So let's take a look at the kinds of behaviors that constitute ACEs. They can include abuse, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, which can occur, physical abuse about 28% of the time, psychological abuse about 11% of the time, and sexual abuse for about 1 out of 5. It can occur in neglect, where the child's needs are not being taken care of, emotionally, for about 1 out of 6 children, and physical neglect, about 1 out of 10. Household dysfunction may have the most categories, and it can include substance abuse, 27%, separation or divorce, 23% of children and adolescents experience that in their homes. Mental illness, 17%. About 13% of us have a mother who's been battered, and criminal behavior or incarceration for about 6% of the population. Of the 17,000 ACE study participants, about 2/3 had 1 or more ACEs, and about 1/3 had 0 ACEs. So what's the impact of ACEs on later life? Well, there's a dose-response relationship, so that the more ACEs one experiences, so does the risk of negative health outcomes. The more ACEs one has, then this can have social, emotional, and cognitive outcomes in early life. It can involve the adoption of health risk behaviors, later on in life, disease, disability, and social problems, and even an early death. The hypothesized relationship between ACE and these events is that children grow up in a situation of fear where there's a fight or flight response, and they are always in a state of feeling peril. ACEs can have a lasting effect on health, like obesity or diabetes or depression or suicide attempts, on behaviors like smoking or alcoholism, and even on life potential, like graduation rates, academic achievement, and lost time from work. The more ACEs one has, the greater these risks. In fact, for those people who've had an ACE score of 6 or more, they tend to have an early death, as much as 20 years. So, possible outcomes for ACEs include behaviors, smoking, alcoholism, drug abuse, missed work, and a host of physical and mental health issues: obesity, diabetes, depression, suicide attempts, STDs, heart disease, even cancer or strokes. This is a national health issue. ACEs have a strong influence on adolescent health, smoking, alcohol, sexual behavior, a whole host of things that you can see here. Mental health, and even the risk of re-victimization or even homelessness. The cost of ACEs? Well, for kids who survive these childhood experiences, the cost is about $210,000. The largest category of which are productivity losses, adult and child medical expenses. But don't forget that these are just the economic costs. The costs can even include one's life and one's health and disability. How important are these? Well, Robert Bloch, the past president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, said, "Adverse childhood experiences are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today." So what can we do about ACEs? Well, we can do things like have home visits, we can support parenting, we can support parents' relationships with their children, we can make sure that adequate mental health and substance abuse treatment is available, quality health care, and we can make sure that there are fewer economic disparities in our population. This can be done at a local level. It can be done on a national level, so here's a CDC initiative, or it can happen on a state level. And you can see how many states have initiated bills. 46 of them just last year. So thank you for listening and watching this presentation, and I hope you've learned something about ACEs and our role in preventing them.